Radio and ESPN2. Today, the start of the new year, I still don't know how to say the name of the song that is currently playing. Matt Jones, do you?
Yeah, it's what, Auld Lang Syne, right? To all acquaintance be forgot.
I think you're right on that. I could sing a couple bars of it. I could not get to the point where they say for Auld, or is it odd? I don't know.
It's Auld. It's A-U-L-D. By the way, I want to thank the folks that did this show and asked me to do it, because New Year's Eve, Courtney, has been the worst holiday of my life over time. I was broken up with on New Year's Eve. I bailed a friend out of jail one time on New Year's Eve, and I also was at a rehab I wasn't at rehab. I was visiting someone on New Year's Eve. So getting out of New Year's Eve was the best thing possible. So thank you to ESPN for having me do that.
Yeah, for all of you who might be like stumbling in right now, I mean, I know that it is like middle.
Can't be many listening or watching right now.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We're glad that you're spending your morning with us here, the first of the new year on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, unsportsmanlike as always, presented by our good friends over at Progressive Insurance. You've got Courtney Cronin, Matt Jones sitting in for Evan Canty and Michelle. They will be back tomorrow to break down all of the national championship implications in the CFP semifinals that we get today. Later on our airwaves, coverage beginning 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. But there's so much to get to from the Week 17 slate of the NFL season. The games, if you're just waking up right now, the slate for Week 18 is finally set, about a 50-50 split between those 1 p.m. games and the 4:25 games, followed by the race for the AFC East between Buffalo and Miami. That is Sunday Night Football next week. But let's start with the Miami Dolphins, as we just talked about, the team that they played yesterday, the Baltimore Ravens, a 56-19 final for Baltimore, a day where Lamar Jackson has no problem carving up this defense that was the best scoring defense in the NFL. He throws for 321 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, adds 35 yards on the ground, and adds to his MVP campaign in helping Baltimore lock up the number 1 overall seed. We know that this MVP race, Matt, throughout the month of December, a lot of jockeying for positioning. At first it was Dak Prescott, and then it was Brock Purdy. Now it's Lamar Jackson, who looks like he's about to run away with his second award. And I think it just goes to show that this can change a lot. Last year, we didn't have that. We had Jalen Hurts, we had Patrick Mahomes thundering down the stretch, a 2-person race until Hurts ends up getting hurt and missing those final few games of the regular season, and Mahomes ends up winning his second MVP. This, to me, has made it more exciting that we have seen 3 different quarterbacks, and you can throw Christian McCaffrey in the mix there too, but 3 quarterbacks as the front runners in the month of December alone. And at this point, I know with 1 week of the season left, there's not much time, but this is Lamar Jackson's to lose, and this may be a better season for him than when he won it the first time in 2019.
Oh, it definitely is. This is the best Lamar's ever played. I mean, this is the Lamar on the NFL level that he was in college, which was a guy who could do everything. And then in the NFL, at first, you didn't necessarily see the passing component quite as much, and now you are, and he's playing amazing. The MVP thing is like a group think. That's what happens with this stuff. It's just everybody moves as a group over and over, rather than I've actually thought Lamar was the MVP since at least like week 7, because there's no team that changes more with or without a player than Lamar. He is the offense. He is the whole thing that drives it. And I give the kid a lot of credit. I've known him since he was a sophomore in college, and he's always believed on himself in a level that other people have not. And what I like about this is you could make a strong argument going into this season that really nobody on any team valued him the way they should. The Ravens didn't want to pay him as an elite quarterback, and other teams didn't want to trade for him. And now they would, and he went out and did it. So I have a ton of respect for that kid, always have. He's not only the MVP, I think he has been, over the last 7 years, next to Mahomes, the best player in the NFL. And, Courtney, I just don't think people have ever given him that credit and respect, and I'm glad to see him getting it this year.
You brought up week 7, and that made me think back to their game against the Detroit Lions. When I write our MVP file at ESPN.com. We put it out every 3 to 4 weeks in the season. We'll be doing it after week 18. And I assume at this point that this is his award to win. But we pick out MVP moments. And to me, That came week 7 when he gets this offense off to a 28-0 start against the Detroit Lions, who at that point were thundering.
Looked great. They looked like a defensive juggernaut.
They were a 5-1 team. They came into Baltimore looking like they were going to just stomp the light out of the Baltimore Ravens. That wasn't the case at all because Lamar orchestrated a multifaceted attack that has remained consistent throughout the season, even when the weapons around him haven't been consistent. We've talked so much about Patrick Mahomes and his offensive weapons, his wide receivers, failing him in those big moments where they're not coming up on the receiving end of very easy passes that have been put into their hands. We don't give Lamar Jackson, for some reason, that same sort of credence to where if Zay Flowers is having an off night, if they're not getting contributions from Justice Hill, if they're having to rely, on a catch here or there from Odell Beckham Jr., which, again, he had one yesterday that was really impressive, but they're not getting consistent production out of him, Lamar's still able to put the offense on his back and get his team in position where he's going toe-to-toe with two of the best offenses in the NFL in back-to-back weeks. 33 points on the road against the San Francisco 49ers. 56. I'm going to tell you that again. 56 points, a season high in scoring for the Baltimore Ravens when Lamar Jackson throws 5 touchdowns. He's not doing it the way of old when he was the unanimous MVP in 2019, where he set the single-season quarterback rushing record. He's still a dynamic threat with his legs. No one will ever take that away from him. There's 2 quarterbacks, Matt, in the NFL that can do that. It's Justin Fields and it's Lamar Jackson. And Lamar does it at a level that is different from anything we've ever seen. But watching him develop as a passer this year, after everything we heard throughout the offseason about installing a new offense, maybe there were some lumps here and there that they had to take as they work through this. You've watched the development of Lamar Jackson over the course of the season. And to watch him, like if you took him off this team, is this team the number 1 seed in the AFC?
No, it's not. This team doesn't even make the playoffs without him. I mean, he is a completely different superstar. And I think what has happened is there were a lot of people. He was the ushering in of a new era of NFL quarterbacks. There will never be a pocket doesn't move quarterback again. At least one at an elite level. There just won't. And he is the first guy that sort of, well, he's not the first, but he was the major guy in that transition. I still remember hosting the NFL pregame show, the very first radio show Dan Orlovsky did with ESPN, and Orlovsky was saying he's not an NFL quarterback. I remember Dan. I'm still giving you a hard time about it. But the reason he thought that was we just hadn't seen guys like him succeed. And now there's a whole generation like Justin Fields who are able to be given the benefit of the doubt that he was not given. And so I actually think it has taken to year 6 or 7 for him that people finally accept that what Lamar is what quarterbacks are now. That is what a quarterback in the NFL is, exactly what Lamar is. And it didn't feel like that when he came in. He is the dude who has suffered so that a Justin Fields can get picked and people give him the benefit of the doubt. I think that's partially why he's one of the most impressive players in the league. And Courtney, I'm a Kentucky guy. He's a Louisville guy. I hate Louisville with a passion, but I still love Lamar because I think he's just on a whole nother level.
It's unsportsmanlike. He's Matt Jones, Courtney Cronin, sitting in for Evan Canty and Michelle on this January 1st morning. Happy New Year to you and yours. The show, as always, presented by Progressive Insurance. You go back to that time, though. That's 2018. That's not that long ago.
I know.
And what we've learned since then, which we already should have known, it's like if you have a one-dimensional threat, you make it easier for defenses to beat you. As passing offenses, as offenses in general have evolved in the NFL, that dual threat capability that Lamar Jackson ushered into the NFL in ways that we honestly had not seen since Michael Vick, that athleticism combined with how good of a passer he is. And he needed to hone that skill set. He wasn't going to do it in Gus Bradley's offense. He's now able to do it in Todd Monken's offense. And there's a reason that during the game yesterday, the 56-19 win that they had over the Miami Dolphins, you saw so many shots of Todd Monken, the former Georgia offensive coordinator, up in the booth. It's because he's built something for Lamar Jackson that's getting every last drop out of his skill set. And that's helping the Baltimore Ravens to where they are right now, the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs. So the road to the Super Bowl goes through Baltimore this year. Lamar Jackson following the game. We know we're talking about MVP. We know we're talking about the win, but here's what he had to say about the importance of what it meant for their playoff hopes, which for them will begin in the divisional round.
It was very important. We had a lot of guys, banged up, nipped up with injuries, guys who couldn't play. We had guys who stepped up, knew the situation, and they played lights out, all phases. We all knew it was important for us to get this win, and we did just that.
So we won't likely see Lamar Jackson or really anybody else next week when they have the Steelers in their finale, because they have clinched home field advantage. They've clinched the number 1 seed. So again, they don't start playing until the second week of the postseason, since they'll be playing in that divisional round. I know that you and I are differing of opinion here, though. Do you think this could actually hinder the Ravens?
Well, I don't think
that little
hinders.
bit of drop, the time off that they would have?
I don't think it hinders, but I do think, though, you do have to be careful when you essentially, if you're going to give Lamar off this week, which I think you should, then there's going to be 3 weeks in between him playing. And I do think that's something that matters. Now, there are teams that have made it work, but I think you are more vulnerable to an upset. Again, let's go through what the bracket is likely to be. If you're going to be the 1 seed, let's just assume the 2 and the 3 both win, which will be the winner of the AFC East and the Chiefs. You're going to then, in your first playoff game, probably play the loser of the AFC East, which will either be the Dolphins or Bills. So the Dolphins and Bills will play each other. The loser of that game is probably going to open up your playoffs against Baltimore. Those are 2 pretty good teams. Now, I know you just crushed the Dolphins, so you probably feel good about it. But I do think it's important to understand you're going to have Lamar 3 weeks having not played, all of a sudden seeing likely the Dolphins or the Bills. That's a tough game to start the playoffs off. So it's just something to watch as you watch these playoffs develop over the next few weeks.
Who would you want to face less if you are Baltimore in that AFC East showdown that we have on Sunday Night Football? That's the last game of the regular season between the Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. That'll decide who ends up getting the, likely to be the 2 seed in the AFC playoff picture, who ends up as the 6 seed, which currently Miami's the 2, Buffalo's the 6. I know that Buffalo had a close-ish game, a one-possession game that they one-score game that they end up winning yesterday against New England Patriots. They've had some close games as of late. To me, they are the most dangerous team in this AFC playoff picture.
Yeah, I guess looking at it, the Ravens would get either the Browns, the Dolphins, or the Bills. If I'm them, I'd rather play, of all those teams, the Dolphins, because I just think the Dolphins are the Ravens but worse, whereas the Browns and the Bills would play them much more physical, especially the Browns. I'd probably want the Browns the least.